So it's that time of year, but I guess I'd argue it's been that time of year for a while. The playoff intensity that we've been seeing in games with the Oilers and other teams as well. What puts a team into that gear, being into playing a game, like whether it's a game against your provincial rival, the Flames, or Toronto when they spanked you or something like that? The games we've seen had that playoff feel to it.
A lot of things. I mean, some of it just boils down to just pure instinct. The weather gets a little bit warmer. You look at the month, you look at the time left in the season, and it just, if you've been in this league for a while, it automatically it hits you. Even as a fan, you walk out and they're playing hockey and there's no snow on the ground. You're like, all right, it's time. We're getting it on here. And this season with the playoff races and the standings as tight as they are, it just everything funnels into what we're seeing right now. Like we saw in that game against Montreal, where it was just a fantastic high intensity game. So I think it's just a combination of everything. It's the schedule, it's the standings, it's the time of year, and it's why we love it.
Even before the season started, I think we expected games to be like this. They've been playing in division all year. They're only playing the same six opponents, likening back to what it might have been like with the original six. Almost all of them are so-called playoff teams, even with teams like the Canucks and Flames on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I actually thought this season would be more intense than it was. I thought we'd see these boiling over rivalries with chaos and carnage, and it kind of wasn't the case at the start. They were butting heads a little bit, and then kind of in the middle of the schedule, things calmed down a bit. Partly because the games are so important. You couldn't take the penalties because literally, if every game's a 4-point game and the playoffs are always hanging in the balance, you really had to watch your P's and Q's out there. So, and I think as we dial it into the stretch drive, you're not going to see the fighting anymore. That's pretty much out of the game, and you'd never see it in the playoffs anyway. But you're seeing everybody's finishing their check, everybody's blocking shots, everybody's doing those little extra things that maybe you can't do over the course of an 82 game season or even a 56 game season, just for simple wear and tear in your body. But when the playoffs get here and the stretch drive is here and the stakes are up and the adrenaline's flowing, those are the things we're seeing out of the players now, and that's what makes hockey the beautiful game, is when they're playing it like they are now.
Mike Smith seems to have been a catalyst for the Oilers when it comes to raising the intensity. I'd say he's played with a higher level of intensity pretty much this season. He's played that way his whole career. But what does it mean to have a veteran presence like Smith on the Oilers, but particularly because he's playing goal?
I think anytime you look back at your goalie, regardless of how he plays, and if you have confidence in him, that spreads through the team. I mean, it makes a big difference. You're not walking on eggshells. You're not afraid to make a mistake. You can relax a little bit. So he absolutely brings that. And if you have a player in any position who's a gamer, who's battling and who has grit and fire, you look around the room and you have a bunch of guys like that. You feel better about your team, and you want to bring it out of yourself too. And I think that's what happens with him. Is he's contagious. He can say something in the room and players will listen because he backs it up with his play and with his intensity. And when you get it from a position like a goalie, it's a place where you didn't expect it, quite frankly. Normally your goalies just sit back there and keep their mouth shut and make their saves, but now you have a big personality who adds to your image and who backs it up. And he's also making the saves. He's also handling the puck. I think it's just a comfort level that he provides when he's in the net, and the fact that he's a gamer just makes it all the better. It's absolutely spreads through the lineup.
As it stands right now, like you mentioned, the Calgary Flames and the Vancouver Canucks are both on the outside looking in on the North Division playoff picture. But as we all know, anything can happen. They're not so far back that it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could sneak in and take one of the playoff spots. We talk about playoff intensity. I mean, the Flames have dialed it up recently, and the Canucks came back from a period of time off because of COVID, and they come out of the gate after that period of time and are winning games. What is that? I guess that we could say that everybody's potentially dialed in here as we head into the stretch drive.
Yeah, those two Canuck games were pretty remarkable. Everybody was cheering for them. People had visions of Toronto winning that first game 10-0 because the Canucks would just be wasted, right? And they rose up, and a lot of it was goaltending. Their goaltending was simply better than Toronto's, but nevertheless, they battled hard, and it remains to be seen how they can sustain that. Like oftentimes a player will come back from an injury, and just because he's running on adrenaline, he'll have a really great game, and then reality will kick in, and then over the next little while, he'll sort of flatten out before he gets it back going up again. But the Canucks obviously don't have time to do that. They have to get after it right now. They have an outside chance of catching Montreal. Who knows? But you're seeing everybody dial it up, them included, and the Oilers too. I mean, the way that they responded in that game against Montreal really says a lot about that team. The exact kind of stuff you want to see heading into the stretch, because not only is the whole team rising up and matching that intensity, but their top players are kind of leading the charge on that front. Like you talk about Mike Smith, McDavid and Draisaitl were battling hard against the Habs, and it seems when the intensity gets dialed up in a physical game, that's when the Oilers are at their best.
All the different factors you talk about, like being shown up in previous games against Montreal, when the Canadiens seem to have figured out how to contain McDavid and Draisaitl. And you could say the same about the Canucks even a month or so ago. But, I'd like to think that somehow, some way, the will to win, it's almost palpable when you watch McDavid and Draisaitl and, obviously Mike Smith and on down the line.
Yeah, I honestly think the Oilers are at their best when the game gets a little nasty. All those battles of Alberta, they did very well in those. And if you remember last year when they got knocked out of the bubble by Chicago, it wasn't that Chicago ran them out of the rink. It was just kind of 5 blah regular season type games. The key to the Oilers, if you're going to beat them, is to just let them sleep. If you dial up the intensity and you run McDavid, and then McDavid gets mad and Draisaitl gets going and Nurse and all those guys, and everybody is playing on the edge, that's when they become a really, really difficult team to beat. And you look at the common denominator in most of Edmonton's losses are they just kind of slept through it, and they were kind of lethargic, and they couldn't really explain why that things didn't go for them. But when they come out of one of those heated battles of Alberta, when everybody's in it grinding and battling together, that's when the team's at their best, and that's what you need for the playoffs. So so far so good. It's still a bit of a ways to go, and you'd have to prove it over the long haul. But the Oilers are trending in the right direction on a lot of fronts heading into the playoffs.